Jesus had some strong criticism for the church in Thyatira. After praising them for their love and faith in verse 19, he says in verse 20, "Nevertheless, I have this against you. You tolerate that woman Jezebel, who calls herself a prophet. By her teaching, she misleads my servants into sexual immorality and the eating of food sacrificed to idols." Jezebel was probably not her real name, but it's a reference to the wicked queen of Israel who led the people into the worship of Baal. You can read about it in the book of 1 Kings, chapters 16 to 21. Whoever this woman was in Thyatira, she was acting like Jezebel did long before, leading God's people toward idolatry, specifically in the areas of sex and food, both of them probably in connection with banquets in pagan temples. Both of them had been specifically forbidden by the Council of Jerusalem that we read about in Acts 15. So even though some of the people in Thyatira had praiseworthy faith and love, others were into lust and compromise. Jesus says in verse 21, "I have given her time to repent of her immorality, but she is unwilling." And presumably she had been warned in some way, but she kept on doing it. So, verse 22, "I will cast her on a bed of suffering, and I will make those who commit adultery with her suffer intensely unless they repent of her ways." We don't know the details on this, though. In verse 23, Jesus even says, "I will strike her children dead. Then all the churches will know that I am he who searches hearts and minds, and I will repay each of you according to your deeds." So here Jesus says that what he does in Thyatira is really a lesson for all the other churches, and it is a lesson for us today too. The book of Revelation was written to people suffering persecution. And the reason that they were persecuted is that they didn't participate in the pagan religious festivities. Most of the people in Thyatira thought that the pagan gods were the source of blessing for the city. And yet these Christians were snubbing their noses at the deities that other people felt were important. Sometimes there were trade guilds that had patron deities, and you couldn't get a job in some of those trades unless you participated in their worship celebrations. So some Christians thought that the safest thing to do was to go along with it. I just go through the motions of worshiping Zeus and Diana or the emperor or whatever else they had there, and they could worship Jesus in secret. But Jesus is saying, no, that's not the answer. I want your loyalty, not a few token words on Sunday in secret. I want your loyalty in worship and in your bedroom behavior as well. If you want to follow me, you can't even pretend to follow some other gods. Jesus wants our whole heart, not half of it. Nowadays, we aren't socially pressured to worship Zeus and Diana, but Jesus has other kinds of rivals now, perhaps political allegiances or social entanglements, sports, hobbies, money, or intellectual pride. Jesus wants our undivided attention, our undivided loyalty, and he is sometimes willing to take strong corrective measures.